Well, good morning, and hope everybody's well, especially Ken. So again, people watching this years from now will go, "Why?" and we'll just keep them wondering. So
Okay, sounds good.
great. Well, appreciate you joining. I've been busy with the film scanner the past week or so, and got a whole hodgepodge of things from all sorts of different places and years. I know Carolyn has a event where folks coming over for lunch or something, and so figured I would move the Griffith Park Observatory stuff up to the beginning, and also in case Ken then needs to go and take a nap, we'll do that. So let me just get out of my mail so it doesn't ding. Oh wait, I won the Nigerian lottery. This is great. Hang on one second. So yeah, basically, I think all the movies we're going to see today were originally Super 8 films. The scanner can do both 8 and Super 8, and I had it set. You have to change the lenses. I don't know how much this will show, but there is a whole lens thing with different extension tubes and sizes and everything that you have to zoom in on the 8mm and zoom out for the Super 8. And I found it easier just to buy a separate set of lenses, keep it set at whatever need I want, and then just makes it a lot easier to go back and forth. So let me get ready for the first one here, Griffith Park. And I will share the screen. Share screen and optimize for video clips so I don't make that mistake again. And we'll get started on here. So starts with a homemade title sequence. The Griffith Park Observatory. Carolyn did a really nice talk a couple of weeks or months ago about how they greatly expanded the planetarium. Basically, the giant thing they did was jacking it up, digging a big hole underneath it, and expanding the area. But this film was somewhere in the early 70s. There's not a lot of particular dates to go on. If you see, obviously there was just a quick Christmas decoration, but if anybody spots anything that's telling in terms of cars or vintage whatever, feel free to say so. So before they go up into Griffith Park, if you're not familiar with it, Griffith Park is a large city park, sits in the hills between the San Fernando Valley and over to the major part of the city. So this is the southern side of the park coming in around Los Feliz area. There's the Greek Theater up there, a number of other events and everything, but basically the poor people that live in this area get a lot of traffic going up past their houses and everything up into the park. And then there's roads through the mountain. They do an awful lot of Hollywood filming and everything up there. But there's the observatory sitting up on top of the hill. The two domes on it.
That looks like it might be in winter since the leaves look so crappy.
What's that?
And it looks like it might be in winter since the leaves don't,
Yeah,
the trees don't have any
Christmas
leaves.
decoration there, so
Oh,
it's
right,
somewhere
okay.
around Christmas.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah. Now let me just stop this real quick right here. There's a tunnel there. If you ever in the area, you can take that tunnel and that takes you to Toontown. So it takes you all sorts of places. Also used for the entrance for NORAD and war games and other odds and ends. But that's the tunnel from Who Framed Roger Rabbit that takes you into Toontown. The tunnel that they filmed Back to the Future, where Marty's on the skateboard and Biff is trying to knock him against the tunnel. Super popular for filming and everything up there. So just up there around the corner, we're going to see the sign telling you if you got a truck, you got to take the tunnel because the road up on the left was too windy for trucks and buses. And we're up at the top. You get a nice view. All sorts of houses that none of us are probably ever going to be able to afford. But if you're ever out in the LA area, Griffith Park is a great spot to spend the day. When I worked for Disney, we used to take our bikes at lunchtime and try to make a complete circuit of the park and get all the way back, jump in the shower and run back to our desks. It's a very hilly, mountainous area. We're just getting some general views of the this area. Oh, wait, there's something to catch the eyes. It's the Hollywood sign. And people are probably familiar with it, but at one point it said Hollywood Land because it was the advertising sign for a housing development. But now we're at the observatory. And Carolyn, if you spot any particularly interesting observations or changes or differences, feel free to chime in. City stretching out, sort of a smoggy day down there. There's the Hollywood, it was real quick, the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood was visible real quick, but here's a different dome. And Carolyn, why would an observatory need a wind vane and speed indicator?
I think maybe at the very least, when they open up the dome, they want to know what direction the wind's blowing from. Because there's a telescope, there's a Zeiss telescope in there. Well, yeah, Zeiss 12-inch. Maybe other reasons.
Right. We're going to see the telescope in person coming up.
I think a lot of those trees have been either burned down or cut down.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Last summer they got a pretty good fire right up there.
Yeah, that was the triple beam coelostat that we just saw. This is I don't know if that's still there. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, the fire, the recent one was caused by a homeless guy who got mad at some homeowner for not letting him use the bathroom, so he set the hill on fire. So
they still do public observing in there, and then you can watch the sun from inside.
Now, let me pause this one here. Could you tell us what a filar micrometer is?
Yeah, it's basically an instrument that allows you to split two objects in the sky. Like if you had two stars really close together, you'd sort of center the micrometer between the two so that you could see each one. Ken, do you know if they still have that in there? I think they do.
I can either confirm or deny. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know I wrote about it, but but they weren't installing it right the last time I was there. But yeah, that's usually what you do is you use it to just separate the view of two things in the sky that are really close together. There's the telescope.
Well, it's also intended to allow you to measure precise separation.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I was impressed. When was the telescope done? It was around 1919 or something like that.
I don't remember if it was built for the observatory or not. But the observatory didn't open until the early 30s.
Okay.
It doesn't say on there. Oh, that's a sundial. Never mind. Yeah, so there's all these instruments outside which are intended to illustrate, how we viewed the sky before we could magnify it using telescopes. And then this is the statue of, well, there's the astronomer's monument. So Galileo Copernicus.
They moved that for the construction, right? And then put it back again?
It never left. I don't think it ever left. I think it was there and it was covered. Yeah, they covered in the beginning. When they were doing the blasting, they covered it with a protective tarp. That was all gone by the time I got out there to see it. So there's the telescope. It's kind of interesting. You look at early pictures of it, and there are all these people dressed in their suits and dresses crawling up on this ladder to look through the telescope. I'll
just pause this here real quick. We get a science lesson on Saturn here. So it's 9 times the diameter of Earth. Its rings make Saturn unique, consists of millions of tiny rocks and boulders. I got a kick down here. A day there is only 10 hours and 15 minutes long. Scanning this, I learned something I never knew before. It's interesting because this was obviously written before they found the rings of Jupiter and Uranus and Neptune. Yeah, it's not quite as unique as they thought, right? Yeah. Well, this is early 70s. That would make sense. Right. 240 below zero. Boy, with the heat we've had out here lately, that sounds good. Yeah. This is Ken, is that right? 10 hours and 15 minutes. I thought that was Jupiter.
I can check on the side.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just it's probably right. I just don't have it to mind right now. Yeah. And it kind of depends on where you measure too. they've had, I don't remember how many people they said have looked through this, you know, millions and millions, probably about 90 million people they think have looked through this telescope now.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. The whole idea was that you could always have a chance to look through a telescope for free.
Right. That's pretty neat. Then there's, I guess, a series of displays of other satellite, other observatories.
Yeah, we did reuse some of that material and then got new images of all of those observatories. Gosh, and every one of these has a major story behind it too. Mount Wilson. So Mount Wilson was the big, it's to the north of you, I guess. Well, not to you necessarily, but to the north. And you can, and you know, if it's a really clear day and the sun's shining just right, you can see the domes and everything up there.
I need to point out there, Carolyn, that Mount Wilson has a Hubble traveling exhibit on the mountain.
Cool.
Now. So if you get a chance to get up there and you're in the area, you can learn about Hubble at the same time as Mount Wilson.
Did you get to see it up there when you were out last?
I did. In June, I went up there. And,
so this is the old Zeiss projector, and it was replaced by a new Zeiss Universarium. And that Zeiss projector is part of an exhibit now inside of Griffith. So when you go in there in the lower level in the depths of space, it's kind of hidden. It's behind a couple of other exhibits, but there's a big Zeiss projector you can look at.
That's nice to survive. Yeah. Carol and I went up to Mount Wilson a number of years ago, hoping to take a tour, and place is closed. So I'll have to get online and see when it's open and when you can go up there.
They have a fascinating website.
Yeah, I mean, they came so close to burning again in a fire a couple of years ago. It was really, really scary. So in this movie, the guy got some nice pictures here again of the planetarium area, but then he tried to film the whole show, and I will not subject you to the whole show because most of it's really dark with a flash of something. But they had pictures of space flight. I think they were trying to explain where where all this observation was leading to.
They probably talked about how that observatory was used by the Apollo astronauts for training too.
Right. That
planetarium. You know, this is the kind of instrument I trained on when I was working at the planetarium. Cool.
So that's neat there. Now, after that, the fellow, or I assume it was a fellow, went just down the street. We're going to see this one now. And out from the parking lot, looking up to the mountains, Mount Wilson would be up in that general direction. The LA Zoo, this is the so-called new LA Zoo. The old LA Zoo, Carol, I remember going to as a kid, had very, very small enclosures and cages for the animals, to the point where people started protesting and yelling about it. So they built an entirely new zoo in the early 70s. The old zoo, this is what I'm going to try to date it, Buzzard, a Walter Lantz figure that they used for licensing. The old zoo is, some of it's still there. They use it for filming movies and that. You can wander through the old cages and that. But this is the new zoo, which is super, super popular. The last couple of times we've tried to go, we pulled into the parking lot, said hell no, and we used to be members of it, but it got to the point where you couldn't even go because it was always too damn crowded. So
hey, Bill.
Yeah,
Bill, right across the street from the main entrance, there's a series of low buildings that are there now, and that is the complete video and CGI production studio for Griffith Observatory. It's where they produce their shows, although it's shut down right now. But when they start reproducing, that's what they use.
And the fellow that took this did a nice job in several spots of capturing the names of the animals. Generally, he's got the animal, and then he'll go and find the sign for it. But otherwise, I would never know what on earth some of the particular ones were. He favored a few animals over others. So we're going to see a bunch of rhinoceros and the traditional suspects, giraffes, and that. But now, how many people could name this one? Extra points if you can come up with the name before it comes on the screen. I just know.
Is that a no copy?
Well, we'll see if you're right.
Is that an
I
okapi?
wouldn't want that guy mad at me.
Is it an ibex?
I'll be honest with you. I
That's
don't,
what I was gonna say. And I
Hmm.
think the okapi has stripes.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah. Boy, those are beautiful.
think he comes back with the name of it. If not, we'll have to look it up. This one I can name. It's a giraffe.
It's the giant African leopard.
Yeah.
We went on a field trip with our 7th graders, I think, to the zoo. And to thank the docent that led us around, I wrote a poem about all the animals we saw.
Oh,
I
that's
have-
cute.
Look for it, Carol. You can read it to us.
I'll see if I can find it.
It's interesting. Griffith Park over the years has had problems where a number of animals have gotten loose from the enclosures and gone wandering through the park. And there was some stories about some of them that were real escape artists. Oh, if we fix it this time, they'll never ever get out again. Oops, they've done it. But they had some problems where some particularly venomous animals got out, and they had to put the entire area on lockdown until they were able to find them. Some super venomous snakes and things. It is a nice zoo. Again, I'd go there more often if it wasn't so crowded. They have a program, or they did before COVID, where different things you could go up there and spend a night at the zoo, and people said it was fun getting a tour of it, but you don't get much sleep because a lot of the animals at night are really just roaring and making a lot of noise. But evidently, the popular overnight spot. See if Carol can find her poem and she can narrate this for us. And did anybody know what that was? It's again great that they caught some of the signs. So I said,
Found it.
Oh, found it. Okay, read us your poem.
Carol's microphone is off.
Yeah, I don't know if Carol, if you're trying to read it, we're not hearing it.
It would help to unmute, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Oh, that was just the dramatic pause at the beginning was impressive. So,
No.
we
The
heard you
fourth
say you
grade-
found it.
Yeah, that's funny because I didn't think I pressed the button. Anyway, the 4th grade toured the LA Zoo. To all our docents, we say thank you. We learned so much from you smart docents that we raised our intelligence quotients. So very still lay the alligator. We wondered if he'd move sooner or later. Well, see, these don't go with the animals as you're showing them. The
That's
little,
okay.
huh?
That's okay.
Okay, the little meerkat with his tail in the air looked as though he hadn't a care. With eyes to the side, he spends each day praying not to become a bird's prey. Except for their ears, they look almost the same, but sea lions are simpler than seals to tame. A polar bear, is that a polar bear? No. A polar bear, 1,000 pounds with blubber, uses fur-lined soles when he's a landlubber. The ibex has a mighty horn from the moment it is born. With suction cups on all 4 feet, its climbing skills are hard to beat. The koala lives its life alone, a fact that is not so well known. The eucalyptus leaves it drinks and eats are its only culinary treats. Kangaroos jump so very far they almost reach the nearest star. They never sweat. Better yet, they use their paws, their noses to wet. And their cousins, the wallabies, drink seawater and sleep in trees. The cassowary is a giant bird, which means it cannot fly. Its heavy bones and wings too small don't let it reach the sky. Gorillas walk upon their knuckles and they have opposable thumbs. Though their gaits may elicit chuckles, they can pick up the smallest of crumbs. The king of beasts is a very strange cat. The females hunt so the males can grow fat. You might say females are the pride of the pride, for they take their awesome tasks in stride. The giraffe has babies that are 6 feet tall, which is the same distance.
You unmuted again, Carol. Carol? You're muted.
I'm holding my book and it must have hit the thing.
Yeah, you got through the babies that are 6 foot tall.
Okay. Its temperature rises with the heat of the day, so cool and fresh it can always stay. Chimpanzees are our closest cousins. Their social groups number in the dozens. With handmade tools, they get their food. Termites, they tell us, taste very good. The elephant does most things slowly, for it has plenty of time. It uses its trunk to smell and feel and retrieve the occasional dime. It takes 2 years for babies to arrive, and 6 sets of teeth keep adults alive. We made friends with a Komodo dragon, which had a forked tongue that kept on wagging. It's 10 feet long, weighs 300 pounds, and its appetite truly astounds. Its hunger is so very real that it eats a pig at every meal. Our trip to the zoo was most productive. We learned things that were quite constructive. So next time we plan to visit the zoo, we'll be sure to take a docent too. And they actually, I sent it to them and they posted it in their lounge there. They said, that's it. Those are the animals we toured.
Well done,
That was
Carol. That was
awesome.
awesome. Very
That was
cool.
You know,
really-
my mind used to focus on things and then suddenly a poem would come out.
That's really wonderful, Carol. I
Oh,
mean,
thank you.
the animal, it looked like the animals were looking up at you every time you went to a different verse.
Well, that may be, but they didn't coordinate with the pictures, but that's okay.
Actually, when you were talking about the female lion hunting, that's exactly what we were looking.
Yeah, I noticed that. Anyway, I used to write so many poems because I saw so many things that just kind of gave me a hint of what was to come.
You just never knew what you would hear at dinner. Like she'd sit down, Bill, if you don't clean out the garage, I'm going to set you adrift on a garbage barge, you know, stuff like that.
Well, Carol, it was certainly better when I was growing up. The San Francisco Zoo had a jingle that started, all the animals in the zoo were jumping up and down for you. I don't remember the rest of it, but yours was certainly better.
I'm trying to figure out what these guys are doing. They, it looks like there's a bear inside that enclosure and they're being very casual about it. We're almost done at the zoo. We should be playing the, what you call it, Simon and Garfunkel song, right? It all happened at the zoo. Anybody know what this guy is?
Anteater.
Anteater.
That's what I would say, except
No,
he's kind of big for
think-
that.
I think it's a
Oh.
taper.
Paper,
Yeah,
yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
You could play Carnival of the Animals too.
Yes, yeah.
If it's a carnival, where's their cotton candy?
Can't have it if it sticks to the ground. Oh, wait, that's Disneyland. And he put his own homemade title on there. I got a kick out of. So we've seen some animals here. We're gonna go take a look at some more. I don't think I showed this one last week because I don't think I was done with it, but if I did and it looks familiar, please let me know. Again, if you're out here in this area, you probably knew about Marineland. It was a theme park, marine theme park on the Palisades Peninsula. And it was really a great spot to go and visit. Ran there for years, very successful, and then all of a sudden shut down in the middle of the night because the owners, Hardcourt Grace Jovanovich, decided it was much more lucrative to sell off the land for housing. So a lot more housing out there than you see in these particular movies. If you do come out here, there's hardly anything left out there. I think they saved the sign. Matter of fact, this is the old sign we're going to see in just a moment in the movies down the road. But there was a newer sign with Bubbles the whale on it, and he's in the town now owns them. But here's a sign for it: the world's largest oceanarium with trained whales, porpoises. The sign goes down a little bit. Games and other animals. If you're in the area and you drive around there, it takes you to a place called Portuguese Bend, which is a absolute amazing geological issue as far as earth movement, and you can't build anything on it. The road constantly has to be rebuilt, but if you go driving on it, it's real interesting. Down off this point, there's a wreck of a World War II ship, the Dominator. Carol and I went diving on it. So you think about, things like this lighthouse and that, not too many years ago, people were still missing their route and smacking the ships into the mountains. But Marineland was really good. Today, of course, people have different views as far as keeping the animals in captivity, but they had two killer whales, Orky and Corky. When the park closed down, they got shipped out to a SeaWorld and got renamed Shamu, and probably Shamu 12 or something. But this is, again, up at the top of Marineland, looking down out over the Pacific. I have no idea what this is. If anybody can identify it, please let me know. I tried to Google search and nothing would come up. If you go, again, as mentioned today, this whole area has gotten much more built up. Now, Marineland offered a motel. When it opened, the rooms were $8 a single, $12 for a double. So very popular. You could come and stay right at the facility. They also had off to the left-hand side a restaurant, and then we had an observation tower. The restaurant was very popular for weddings, that sort of thing. And today, I forget the name of the Terrania, I think it's called, a very expensive resort type area built on top of the property, but it stayed stagnant for about 20 years. That there was such an outcry of closing the place down, and people upset about it and whether or not they could bring it back. But the Hardcourt Grace Jovanovich people were pretty sneaky. When they took the animals out, they made sure nothing was going to come back, because one of the things they did was they actually poured concrete into all the drains for all the ponds and pools so that it was going to be impossible to use them again. So they kind of went with a scorched earth philosophy when they left. But dolphin show, you can come out here. We're going to see a number of the different attractions. If you're familiar with the old TV series Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges, they did some of the filming of that out here whenever he had to interact with particular animals. They get them obviously here in great conditions. They would also use the tanks if they were going to do things like have a simulated sea wreck or whatever. They could build the prop, lower it into the water. He could dive on it, and it was much easier for them to shoot in the confines of the tank than it was out in the ocean. They also shot scenes from episodes for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the TV series here. If you're familiar with the series, there's an episode called Leviathan, where they're going along and the sea view is all of a sudden surrounded by giant fish. But that's what they did. They came out here and they took a small model of the sea view and put it in a tank with the real fish, photographed it, and now you had these giant fish menacing the sub. They had some success of doing the voyage stuff out here. So at one point, the facility was owned by 20th Century Fox, the movie studio, and they had Irwin Allen come out here and do exhibits and that, trying to get people interested in the park. Again, it was always hard to get people to go out there because there are no freeways that go anywhere near Marineland or Palos Verdes. So if you went there, it was going to take, you know, a fair amount of time to drive out. Particularly, you can imagine traffic. These days, you go out there, it's just the commuter traffic's terrible. But you would take the commuting traffic back then and all the tourists. It was fun to go to, but it definitely suffered by not being right off the freeway. Much easier to go to Knott's or to you know, Disneyland. Besides Carol and me, anybody else in the fall ever go out to Marineland? Randy, did you make it out there?
Yeah, back in the early 60s, we used to come down like every other year to visit relatives in San Clemente and then, you know, do all of the amusement parks. I don't remember that tower being there. Was that added later, do you know?
Yeah, that was added in the late 60s. And again, I was trying to date the exact date that this movie was shot. So, you know, the tower went in something like 68 or so. And then I was trying to date it by the sign, but I couldn't find any indication when they put up the sign with Bubbles the whale instead of that sign. This was shot, it was in the same collection of films I bought that came with the Griffith Park film. So they're all basically from the same general time. Obviously, quite a collection of dolphins. Anybody know what the larger animal is right there?
I think it's some kind of whale, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not, I don't think a killer whale, but it's you know, quite a bit larger than the dolphins are. They had several different stadiums and areas up at Marineland. So you had this particular pool, you had another one right at the edge of the cliffs, which had a pretty spectacular background to it. And then a very large stadium up on the hill where they did major shows, including where the killer whale shows were done, and then scenes of the trainers going for rides around the tank on their backs. So there'll be a scene coming up here. They started also trying to add in stuff to keep the younger kids amused in between the shows, because the shows, you can imagine, are not nonstop. They were staged around the facility different times of the day, but they put in a playground, so you'll see a very large slide there and other things to keep the kids busy. But then there was an underwater observation area. Okay, so here we're going to see killer whales, the world's most voracious predator.
Bill,
Yes.
my daughter says it's most likely a pilot whale.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, if it was a killer whale in there, everybody else would be eaten.
Yeah, and here they are. You can see they keep them by themselves. I always wondered, you look at how like small the wall is and kids over there, you know, it's just scary to thought that if, you know, like somebody's got their kid up on the wall there, if Junior fell in, you wonder, you know, are these guys fed enough that they're not immediately hungry and gonna tear them to shreds, or is it gonna be, hey, the last one of those I had was pretty good? And again, this is where you could use, make it easy for underwater filming for sea hunt and that sort of stuff. They had underwater viewports that you could go into. Obviously, if the show was filming, they could put their own photographers right into the water. It's a little different than how technology's changed. If you go to Living Seas today at Disney World, obviously the animals are in a much more naturalistic looking environment, not just the flat sterile concrete.
Bill, have you been to the Long Beach Aquarium?
Yes, we went not long after it opened. Boy, talk about crowded. That was
Yeah.
really that was some day. I mean, just trying to get through there. But I thought it was a very nice facility. Do you go often?
I'm a charter member and actually I can go whenever I want, but I haven't been for a few years. They did a pretty major addition a couple of years back, but I haven't been there since.
Yeah, Carol and I and a friend of hers went down and we got there and oh my God, we found out every third school child from the greater Los Angeles area was there with us. They had, if I remember right, going into the entrance hall, they had a giant whale hanging overhead.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, matter of fact, we went there and that might have been the first place that, and Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, they had the leafy sea dragons there that you kind of fell in love with.
I'm not sure if that's where I first saw it, but it could be.
Yeah, they do have
Those
them.
are my favorite sea creatures.
And we actually, I remember we went to the gift shop and not surprisingly, they had some leafy sea dragons. So we have them upstairs on a shelf.
But that's not the one I have, I think came from the up north.
Could be. Oh, when we went up there, yeah. We're just on keeping an eye out for them. They're amazing looking creatures.
Yeah, they had an exhibit at the Monterey Aquarium of those.
Yeah, that's where I saw, I think I got my stuffed one. Apparently they come from one little area in the whole world around Australia. And it's the only place that they've been found.
They look like arugula.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hopefully they taste better.
I don't,
Oh, now how would you know that?
Well,
Yeah,
I know
I-
I don't like arugula, so.
I'm
I was
not a
gonna-
fan either.
I was just gonna say anything would taste better than arugula.
But they're like seahorses. They're a member of that family, I think. There's a leafy sea dragon and the weedy. Oh, okay. Beth posted weedy sea dragons.
Hey, Carol, the next time Misty wants her tummy rub, should I do that to her?
She's a little smaller.
Imagine putting this on your resume, huh? Killer whale rider.
I wonder how the whales feel about it.
I was just thinking that too.
Yeah. But I tell you, it looks like he was enjoying getting his tummy rubbed. So, I don't know how social creatures they are or anything, but they might enjoy the interaction.
Yeah, it could be.
He sure enjoys the fish. Look at him, just handfuls of it, just dumping it down.
And what goes in must come out.
Yeah. It just reminds me of our dogs. Every time I walk into the living room at night, Carol will relate to this. I can just barely get into the room and the two dogs will come running from wherever they are to sit down and stare at me at the chair that I sit in because I keep the bag of dog treats next to it. And they'll just sit, and then it's one of those things you have to try to tell them. If I get up and go to the kitchen and get myself a snack, or if I go to the bathroom, you don't get something every time I come back and sit in this chair. It's only the first time I come in and watch TV for the night. But as soon as I stand up, oh my God, they're thinking maybe he won't realize he's already given us something.
Yeah, I've
So-
got that problem with my neighbor's 15-year-old Siamese cat. I started giving him greenies, those little
Yeah.
cleaning things. And every time I walk out the front door, he's waiting for me.
They smell bad, but I think the animals love them.
Oh, this guy loves them, yeah.
So some more views of the facilities. I think we're pretty much done with most of the shows there. Again, that's over in the Portuguese Bend area, not built up today. If you build your house up on the hill in about 10 years, it's going to be into the water. So they're constantly having to reconnect. There's a slide I mentioned. Now, for that slide, did everybody see this story on the news about a week ago of a park that opened a slide like that?
Yeah, and the kids were practically flying on it.
Yeah, they overdid it, and they would get to these things and they go up in the air and came crashing down. So this reporter went out there to find out, is it as bad as they said it is? And she got off the thing and she said, I think I broke my tailbone. So we went to a slide like this in England where they put you on a burlap sack, and I think that's what these kids are on. And it came down, and our son absolutely loved it. And remember that, Carol? Was that
Yeah, over and over again.
Yeah, so we have movies of him going down and down and down, and luckily they didn't go airborne. But that footage on the news, I'm watching it and go, holy crap! Did they not test this thing before they put the public on it?
Maybe the testers were well nourished.
Yeah, I tell you, that reporter, she was an adult. She took a good bounce up in the air. I was just thinking, when we built Space Mountain, we tested with sandbags and stuff. You wonder if they thought about doing that, put a crash test dummy on the damn thing. Those kids were really going into the air.
So Bill, I'll mention that Terranea restaurant or resort that they have down there now. It's worth a trip down there. There's a restaurant called Nelson's, which was named after Mike Nelson from Sea Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an outdoor, indoor, but the view is amazing. You sit right there on that point and look out at the ocean. And it's not that expensive. It's worth a drive down there on a nice day.
Oh, that's really good to know. Thank you. I didn't know that was a membership only type of place or not, but yeah, that sounds like it might make a nice day. Do you know if they're open for lunches?
Yeah, that's when we've been there. In fact, I just pulled up there. Let me see if I can find their hours.
Is it crowded enough to require reservations?
We haven't been down there for quite a while, but we just walked in.
This tower ride, I don't know if people saw the video that was on the news this week. There was one of these, I think it was in Japan, that something went wrong and it came down very, very rapidly. Luckily, nobody with major injuries, but I never liked these particular things, thinking if it got stuck, how do they get you out of there? That tower stayed there for a number of years and finally taken down. There had been talk about keeping it for the area. I'm going to jump to back to New York here 1 second. We're going to go to Lake George, New York. I'll start the video here real quick. Lake George area I went to, and I think Kenneth will enjoy this because I know he went there for quite a few summers, but Lake George it's up in the Adirondack Mountains, and it's, I think, about 26 miles long. Incredible body of water. Then it connects up to Lake Champlain. Being up in New York, it was a great way for people to come up and get out of New York City and the heat and everything. So in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, this was a big, big vacation spot. And they built quite a few of these kiddie parks up there in the Adirondack Mountains. Matter of fact, the publisher that does most of my World's Fair books has several books on the theme parks of the Adirondacks. But it was great to go to. So you had Santa's Village or Santa's Workshop. You had the North Pole. You had Storytown. Just one of these after another up there. Some of them are gone. Frontierland just reopened. It's kind of a shadow of itself. They're still trying to get more of it going. But in this particular one, we're at Santa's workshop. Middle of summer, but obviously they have their fake snow. These were just great to go to as a kid. There was, go up there, they have animal parks to go feed the deer, that sort of thing. We'll see some of that. Do you have any movies of your trips up there, Kenneth?
My dad must have taken them. I think I'll have to look. I don't know how much of them have actually survived, but it was our favorite family vacation destination because we were in Connecticut, which meant we could go up there just for one night weekend kind of thing. We spent a lot of time there and absolutely adored it. And nowadays, at the north end of the lake, there's a whole reconstructed Star Trek Enterprise set to add to the value of going to the area. As you know, you've been there.
Oh, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
In
So this-
Ticonderoga, which is at the opposite end of Lake George from Lake George Village, which is at the south.
Yeah, right where it connects over to Champlain.
Right.
So a little toy mechanism and then glass blowers. On this, I had to go and scan the film several times because this was so dark. If I didn't overexpose this part, you just saw the light and nothing else. But then if I kept that exposure, this would have been totally blown out. So I had to do it and splice it all together. But the park had a nativity scene. Again, it was based around Christmas. So they didn't just have Santa Claus and his toys. They had a whole thing about the manger. And again, put this on your resume. You played, Joseph and Mary. And then the three wise men will be coming in another shot in a moment. Or they come bearing their gifts.
When Mary first appeared on the screen, I thought it was a nun.
Yeah, looked at.
She could be walking from New York to Montreal.
Yep. Now we're at another winter theme park. We've left Santa's workshop and we're at North Pole, New York.
Bill, was Santa's Village in Southern California still open when you moved here?
Yes, it was. We went up there and I actually have movies of our daughter up there. And it's been reopened now. We haven't been up since it
I didn't
reopened.
know that.
Yeah, Carol actually had a summer place, or they own it year round. But Carol, you want to talk about Santa's Village? You were up
Yeah,
there?
I mean, I know it was up there, and my father and I used to walk over to Santa's Village from our cabin. But I don't know how many times we actually went in there. It was a theme park up there, and I guess it must have been fairly popular because it lasted for years. And I know they had a North Pole, a frozen North Pole, I actually pole of ice, and some rides, I think, and I don't remember too much about it actually.
Yeah, let me just stop this real quick right here. Yeah, they had a little monorail ride that took you around, a roller coaster and that. And I've got videos of Margot and me at there. It was a fun spot. We enjoyed it. Then they closed it. They had some concerts out there in the off season and that. And now they brought it back. Now this is a really neat little theme park. It's called the Land of Makebelieve. It was in a village called Upper J, New York. And the fellow that built this, his name is Arto, and I don't know if it's spelled Arto or how it's pronounced exactly, Monaco. He actually did a lot of the buildings and design for the other theme parks all around the Adirondacks. So he had a workshop here and he built his own theme park. Unfortunately, it was right on the Osable River, and the Osable River, generally it's just a little trickle, a little stream, but periodically it would come down into a raging torrent, and it wiped the Land of Make-Believe off the map. Well, he was dedicated, he rebuilt it, and then unfortunately after he died, another major storm came in and absolutely destroyed the place. I mean, past any hope of rebuilding it. Excuse me. But one of the things I got a real kick about was that this guy was a real community-oriented guy. And he actually had in the wall that went around the Land of Make-Believe a hidden gate behind a hedge, so the local kids from the community could come in without having to pay for admission. So he wanted to encourage them to come in and visit his park. A lot of them ended up working there in later years, but I thought that was a really nice thing for him to do. My grandparents took us here a number of times. My parents took us on other trips, so it was a really neat spot. They had all sorts of things based on fairy tales, going around the Three Little Pigs, Rub Dub Dub, Three Men in a Tub, and that sort of stuff. Train ride around it, a stagecoach, that can get attacked as all stagecoaches must by the bandits, and the sheriff would come in and save you. But this was all built by this one guy in his workshop up there. Such a shame it got destroyed. After it closed, the Historical Society, it got totally overgrown with incredibly vines with huge thorns on them. And this outfit, this historical group had gone in and they were restoring it, had really done a nice job of getting the castle restored, at least for people to come out and walk around the grounds. And then that Superstorm Sandy that came through really did a job upstate New York. And the pictures of the devastation were really heartbreaking, because it took entire trees, washed them down the river at a huge speed, and the trees acted as battering rams, just smashed everything to pieces in its wake. There was no hope of ever rebuilding it. But again, this is a pretty impressive little spot that he had out there. It wasn't that little, it was actually a pretty good size facility. So for everybody that thinks about, something like Disneyland, there forever, well, Freedom Land was there and it's gone. These places are all gone and gone. Hopefully we come back to 100, 200 years from now, Disneyland's not been paved over and something else put up. And again, the entrance to it, and I always thought the Hidden Gate was a nice thing. We'll just take a quick look at Lake George itself. Again, if you up in the upstate New York area, really recommend going to Lake George. Carol and I have been up there a number of times. We go up every 5 years for my college reunion. And one of the things you have to do is go for a cruise on the Minnehaha. Ken, you've been on the Minnehaha? Would you like to tell people about it?
Oh, it's great. I forget which one is which. There's several different size boats. At least one of them is a paddle wheel style
That's
boat.
the Minnehaha, yeah.
Okay, and it's great. You go cruising up and down the north-south extent of the lake with the paddle wheel behind you, and plenty of open decks where you can look out over the water, and the expensive mansions on the side of the lake. And
Didn't we
it's
do that
gorgeous.
together one time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're up there for the Star Trek thing, and it has a calliope on board that they play.
It's one of the required things, that and a game of miniature golf at the south end of the lake. In the old days, you used to go to Gaslight Village at night and see all the lights and carnival rides and stuff, but that's just a park nowadays.
When I lived up in that area, one of the guys I worked with, his family owned one of those very expensive houses on the lake. It was an amazing place, and he was allowed to use it one weekend a month. And he had a lot of friends every summer. It was just spectacular to go up there and spend the time up there. So again, this just had some other thing I got a kick out of all these old motels and that, because we stayed in so many of them over the years. So let's hop back here to Southern California. And we're going to go take a visit here to Universal Studios. Again, I don't think I did this one. It's a Universal Reel 10. Yep, here we go. This is a souvenir film. Tour of Universal Studios, 1977. Now, Carol, hang on, don't get scared. Carol doesn't like Frankenstein. Oh, we got Frankenstein Jr. out there. This was one of those films that turned total cherry bright red, so worked to get some colors back out of it. But if people were out there in anytime 70s, 80s, and 90s, they were on those glamour trams that took you around the facility. beware of the falling rocks. Giant foam rubber boulders that came tumbling down at you. Then a conveyor belt took them back up to the top. So Universal basically had the lower lot where all the sound stages are. Then you had the tour stuff, and then down below you can see one of the trams is stopped. They take you off the tram and they bring it into the sound stage. Over the years, they had things you could see the set for the TV series Ironside, the apartment for Jamie Summers for the Bionic Woman, and here's the Bionic Woman $6 Million Man Testing Center. So they would pick somebody up out of the audience, and he could, show his newly gained bionic strength. Here he's in front of a screen, and they show you how they add the footage of him running at high speed. She's going to now demonstrate with your bionic legs how you can jump over a fence, or in this case, giant spikes. So today they have in the stage, I think it's probably still there, Backdraft. You go in and they simulate a giant pyrotechnic explosion movie based on the movie Backdraft. When I worked at Universal, it was great fun to watch all the tourists out on the back lot. And if they didn't know who you were, you'd wave to them. They'd all take your picture just to be, forget it. But the most fun I ever had on the back lot was I had gone and interviewed David Hasselhoff for a magazine article on the show Knight Rider. And then he said, we didn't get quite time to finish it. And he said, I'm going to be out at the studio practicing driving on Saturday. Would you like to come out and we can finish up? So I went out, and it was quite a unique experience being in the Knight Rider car with Hasselhoff throwing the thing in turns on the back lot. Turned out he wasn't so much practicing. He liked to go out and show off to the tours. So he came out and screamed up with the car with dirt flying and jumped out signing autographs. And everybody was lining up to hand out pieces of paper. And he said, oh, I don't know why you want my autograph. You ought to get this guy. He's the famous one. The next thing, people are shoving autograph stuff at me. It was really funny. He was a really nice guy. Flash flood. We would go walking out there. Again, when the tours come by, they hit a button, the water all comes down, the tree falls down, the tram goes around the bend, and everything resets itself. Today, a lot of the tram stuff, I think the sound is pre-recorded on it with video screens and everything on board. But back then, it was all wannabe actors and actresses that would come on board, and it's just like the Jungle Cruise at Disneyland, some corny jokes along the way, that sort of stuff. But part of the appeal for it was that you never knew if you're going to find live filming. When my parents first went out there, they were on the tour, and they came across we were doing filming for McHale's Navy, and they got a real kick out of that because the stars just walked over, met the tour, signed autographs. You don't see too much of that going on. This lake out here where they do the parting of the Red Sea, where the tram is going down, has the most voraciously hungry fish in it, because we used to go over to the snack bar, grab a bunch of French fries and go over and throw them into the lake. And I tell you, it's like feeding piranha. I can also tell you that you can take a golf cart and you can part the Red Seas with a golf cart when the tram's not around. But then we found out the golf cart had a little bit of a harder time getting up the ramp coming out of there with the water. So we did that stunt once. It would have been real embarrassing as it filled up again if the golf cart had been back at the bottom of it. Now, a lot of this is burned down in fires. They've had some pretty nasty ones there over the years, but they've rebuilt it over time, either for use in filming, but also a lot of it just to keep it as a entertainment venue for the theme park. I don't think this train attraction runs anymore, but it would come racing out and screech to a stop just before it impacted the tram. The Psycho House has been moved. Amity Island was a great one. We would sit up on the hill on the left-hand side. You could look down at the whole thing and watch the attraction go. But we have our fisherman unaware of what's coming up for him next. Whoops. Jaws has just been out in a 3D version in the theaters, and people are raving about it. Have to think about going, but again, it's you know, close to something like 50 years of rubber shark attacking the trams out there, and people are still eating it up. No pun intended. And that's the actual boat orca they used in the movie. They had sold it for basically pennies on the dollar after the movie ended, and then they decided that they would make a great attraction out here at the theme park. And I understand the guy who bought it for pennies on the dollar sold it for dollars and dollars on the dollar, so he did quite well. I don't think it's there anymore. I think it eventually succumbed to rot, so I don't believe that it's still there. This tunnel would take you in. They used it in an episode of the $6 Million Man, where he goes in and encounters Bigfoot. But it was a really interesting effect because you go into the tunnel and they revolve it around you. And they would have to warn people, if you're sensitive to vertigo, be very careful of it. Oh, and a hair in the gate. That was actually on the film, not on my copy, but on the original. Now they're tilting the camera here to add to the effect, but it was pretty impressive. Then they would take you off to an area, prop plaza in the middle of it, where you could get to you know, meet the characters. You could also go to a snack bar. This was a great auditorium that they had out there, all gone now. It's been repurposed for other things, but I remember going to see Gordon Lightfoot and other odds and ends there. Then they had at the entertainment area, you could pose for a picture with Jaws, or you could go to several live shows. We'll see some of those coming up. It's okay, Carol, he's not going to come and get you.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Examples of miniature models and depth charges and shells of trying to sink the submarine. Then they had the animals actor stage, where the big star of it at this time was Fred, the cockatoo from Beretta. Now they all swore it was really Fred, but I don't know how many Freds they might have been, but that was the big thing. They also bring out trained dogs and that sort of thing. This I got a kick out of, showing how the bird was flying against the wind from the fan. This one was interesting. They would pick two people out of the audience, generally a married couple, and then they would, you'd probably get a kick out of this one, Joey, getting picked for this. They would bring out the makeup artists and they would put the appliances on them, and then dress them up as Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein. Neither one of them can see what is happening to the other one during the time this is going on, so we'll see the big reveal coming up.
Yeah, this is a great thing. I've spent 3 hours in the makeup chair getting made up, and it's you have to have the patience of a saint.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I bet. And then they what you call it, they tell everybody, okay, we're going to turn you back into you know, real people again, so hang on a second. Let me go fire up the machine. Giant sparks, explosions, noise, and okay, how they doing in there? Oh, it didn't go too well. Yep, they were really okay. It's just the magic of Hollywood. This was kind of fun. Screen test theater. They would take actual footage of TV shows. In this case, the TV show Emergency, and they would have people portray actors on it, and then they would put it together with live footage that they're doing here, intercut with actual footage used from the TV show. I did this. I played an air traffic controller in the stage test theater for the movie Airplane 77. And somewhere what they did was they would then sell it to you on Super 8 movie, and then they would the soundtrack would come on a cassette. Somewhere in this house, I have my screen debut as a air traffic controller. I do hope to find it sometime, but this was great fun because now that they're playing back on the screen, and you've just seen the people picked out of the stage. They did this down at Florida too for Epcot. I got to play a Navy corpsman, and I get totally drenched. Remember that, Carol, with the tank of water?
I not offhand.
Oh, I do, because I got soaking wet. They basically had you there on a ship that was going through a storm, and they take a giant dunk tank. Luckily, they gave you other clothes to wear because you got soaking wet, but they tell you, hold on to these two handles when the water comes through because you don't want to get swept off the ship. And it was fun. The stage, this show was great. I always got a kick. He jumps in, ha ha ha, I'm safe. You can't come and get me. Then he sees the sign, danger, quicksand. The guy says, give me a rope. He's got the rope. And he's gone. So you know, that's the end of him, right? This is a kind of cute little gag here. Just silly, but I got a kick out of it. I'm gonna
Bill.
get you for that. And oh, wait, he's back.
Bill, does anyone do shows like this anymore?
You know, they've cut most of these out because of the union cost of doing this. They do have shows up there, but the stage, this particular show, I think it's been gone for about 10 years or so. It was super popular up there. They do have a Waterworld show based on the Kevin Costner film. But again, stuff where they can do things a lot more audio animatronic type figures. And then they don't have to pay, you know, people for the union there. So Universal. And let's see, I have this was kind of an interesting one. Disneyland. This one, I'll show the. Let me stop. I'll show the movie first. It came in a thing that says Color Movies, Disneyland, and Film One, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, Film One. So this great explanation on the back. There, and it has got a Disney copyright on it, but I think this was done through a licensee because we're going to see, according to this, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, Film One. The splendor of the happiest place in the world is captured in this beautiful film. In Fantasyland, Tomorrowland's unique and magical atmosphere of happiness, every child's dream, every adult's most happy experience. This is indeed the happiest kingdom of all. Sleeping Beauty Castle, It's a Small World, Skyway, Alice in Wonderland, Mad Tea Party, People Mover, Submarine, Parades, Mickey Mouse, and many more scenes of a film you must have and a playground you must visit. None of that is in this movie except for Small World. So this is from Panorama International Limited Color Movies. This was again another bright red thing. But in the days before home video, if you wanted to take Disneyland home with you, this was the way that you did it.
Bill, was this Disneyland or Disney World?
That was the interesting thing. I'm glad you mentioned it. At the very beginning, there was footage from Disney World where the dwarfs are outside. So you know, it's right here on the thing. It's color movies, Walt Disney, Super 8 home movies, Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, with a little sticker on it that says film 1. What's interesting is it comes in a blister pack. And the blister pack, again, I'll show when the film stops, it has a thing Disneyland in the front, but it's actually a Disneyland postcard that was cut out to stick in the packaging. It's a very bizarre sort of piece of film. And no mention, of course, I have no idea if this is even Disneyland at all. I mean, the small worlds are a little bit different, but I didn't spot anything in here that would tell me if this was actually shot at Disneyland or Disney World.
Because the entrance was completely different.
Yeah.
Did the film have a copyright date on it, Bill?
Let's see. I don't know on the film. I'm looking in the package. No, it just says all Panorama International Limited films are copyrighted. All television, theatrical, and other rights are strictly reserved. Oh my goodness, is the guy from Panorama at the door telling me I'm in violation?
Well, Walt Disney dealt with licensees up until 1968 when they formed their own company. So my guess is that this is one of those I knew they were dealing with Hollywood Film Enterprises prior to that as a licensee, and Panorama was doing films for both Universal Studios, and I guess they were doing Disney films too. So this
This has to be after 68 though, because it's got Disney World on it, which opened in 71.
Then this must be right in the time when the licensees, changeover was happening.
Yeah, let me stop the share here 1 second. I've got one more movie we'll go to, but
I can tell you all the interiors of that were Disneyland.
Disneyland, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've spent hours in that ride mixing sound in it.
Okay. Yeah, here's the package for it. Up here, it has the Disney, home video logo and everything on it. And down below here, try to get it. It's a Disneyland. It shows Disneyland, but if you take the film out of the box, premiere film come out of the box, which isn't the easiest thing to do. It's inside. Well, it won't show up here on the camera, but you can see that Disneyland in Anaheim, California. It's a postcard that I don't know who had the job of cutting out 3-inch circles of postcards and sticking it in there, but it's just kind of a weird collection that came by. Yeah, I've been through the attraction, walking through it on an off day, Glenn, but I didn't spend as much time in it as you have, so I wasn't quite sure which one that was. So I have one more movie here. Let me go back over here. We're going to go to Expo 67. And let me share screen back here. And so we're going to start here. We're inside the USSR Pavilion. That was an industrial map of all the wonderful facilities, manufacturing facilities across the Soviet Union. So we're taking a tour in the mini rail now. They didn't have a true monorail. This was a train system up there. That's the Thailand Pavilion, been seen at the 64 fair and expanded for Montreal. USA Pavilion in the back. Part of the tracks of the mini rail system. Obviously Britain. We can see the long line for Britain. Again, there's another shot stretching across. Expo was super popular many days. They really hit their attendance projections, unlike 64 where they were woefully under. In Montreal, they were much more realistic about their expectations. What this movie shows, though, if you look at a scene like this, there is no empty space. Everything at Expo had somebody that was leased to. For 64 World's Fair, there were all sorts of gardens and, the Garden of Meditation. Let me stop this one real quick right here. But in Expo 67, basically everybody was fighting to be there because it was a true World's Fair. They didn't have the international embargo against it that the 64 Fair did. This pavilion is interesting, the Yugoslavia Pavilion. And after Expo 67, all of the communist bloc nations pulled their pavilions out of the facility. we've talked before about how most of Expo 67 reopened the next year as Man in His World, but without any of the Soviet pavilions. In this particular case, the fellows up in Newfoundland were thinking that, hey, it would be really, really nice to have a museum of maritime history. And this is a really nice building, and it kind of looks like sails of sailing ships. Maybe Yugoslavia would like to sell it their pavilion. So they made an offer. They bought it for $1 Canadian, and the Yugoslavians were very glad to get rid of it because now they didn't have to spend a good amount of money to take it down. They were totally free and clear of it. They took the pavilion apart. It's in Grand Bank, Newfoundland, and it's still there today as a museum of sailing history in the area. So kind of interesting to think you could buy that for $1. Kind of a neat World's Fair souvenir. Probably Joey, I bet you'd give him $1 for it, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to have that. I'd have to find a room for it though.
And there's the mini rail going around. There were several mini rail systems very popular. Canadian in the background. Well, different provinces and everything down below. The people tree in the foreground, people and sounds of Canada. Kenny Mavic, the inverted pyramid. In the background, Habitat, the modular construction over there. This is a seldom seen part of Expo where it's all done about farming, about man and his environment, and how we have to make sure that we take the best advantage of our world, or we won't have any place to live. Inside the U.S. Pavilion, actual spacecraft and some models of upcoming ones. The parachutes for the Apollo capsules. Balloons used to lower onto the surface of Mars. The giant escalator ride. You can go there today and still ride the escalators and that for Biosphere. Carol and I were there a couple of years ago. And the plastic skin's gone, so it gets very breezy inside, but on a nice day, it's a very nice spot to look out and remember what was there.
So Bill, the escalators still run?
I believe so. I mean, I remember we took an elevator, and I don't remember if that was for a particular reason or not, but I do remember waiting for an elevator. So let me stop there. I will go and look for things for chat. So hope people, it was again a real hodgepodge. I keep buying all these films when they come in from all over the place. But Kenneth, do you feel like you were back at Lake George for a little bit?
That was very nice, very nostalgic. Makes me want to go back again.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to be going back for my college reunion in 2 years. So why don't we plan a Ticonderoga trip again?
All right. By then they'll have the next generation open too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Darren, you said you went to Santa's Village as a boy. If you have some film, I'll be glad to digitize it for you. So just let me know. Orcas are the dogs of the sea, very playful. They look like they were having fun. I hope so. Beth said, oh, the Tennessee has leafy sea dragons. Well, another reason for us to go. Carol, when we went to Chattanooga, I don't think we went to did we go to an aquarium there? I don't remember if we went or not.
Did we go where?
The aquarium in Chattanooga?
I don't think so. We went to the a tour of the mountain of the interior waterfall.
Right.
But I think that was all the tourist stuff we did there. And then we walked across the river back and forth.
Yeah, we went to the cemetery to see the monument for the raiders. Right. Yeah, it's a great thing. I'm just reading through these kind of backwards here.
Carol?
Yes.
Yeah, I got to run, but I want to tell you how much I enjoyed your poem.
Oh.
And I'd like to play this song for you on my way out. So if I may.
You're muted, Joey.
Moon River?
Born Free.
I can't hear what it
Oh,
is.
I can't, I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties, but it was Born Free.
Oh, okay.
So thank
Well-
you, everybody. Take care and have a great weekend.
Bye, Joey.
Take care, too,
too.
Joey.
Bye now.
Yeah, I like I said, I enjoy it. It's like I've been buying way too many of these things, and I still have our own home movies as a kid and everything. But the Lake George area, if I had money, I'd definitely be buying a place in Lake George. But my goodness, those are expensive. It's insane what stuff goes up there for. And it's pretty much all down at the southern end of the lake. When you get up to the northern part, it's pretty empty and not much up there.
Does have a nice selection of different kinds of places to stay. You stay in the village and, classic hotels and whatever, but as you go up the shoreline, you can stay in, these resorts with cabins and stuff and almost self-contained.
We
You can
did that
kinda-
one summer. I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, well, I remember it was interesting because when Kenneth and I got up there, we had a nice long drive up to the Ticonderoga area, and we were driving. I think it's like 9N or something goes along the lake, and we went by this one hotel, and I said, "Hey, that's where we stayed with the kids a couple of years ago." And Kenneth said, "That's where we stayed."
That's right.
Yeah.
Obviously the best place.
Yeah, no, it's a great spot. It's really and then there's so much that you can do up there. Fort Ticonderoga is great to go to, and if you're in the naval history, there were some actually really amazing battles fought there on the lake, for the Revolutionary War and stuff. And some of the ships sunk, and the water is so cold and so clear that it preserved them, and now they've been able to bring up the earliest known U.S. Navy warship they got out of the lake. So it's great fun. So again, if anybody else has other theme park type things they'd like to see brought back to life, please do let me know. Hey, Carlos, I see you there. Are you going up to Onteora next week? Yeah, I won't be able to go up, so please go say hi to the gang for me, and I hope you have a great time. I checked the weather forecast, and it's going to be about 72 degrees and dry for the weekend, and quite rare for this time of year.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Where are you staying?
I think in the health lodge because I need to use my CPAP.
Oh, I thought you were just staying there for old time's sake for working there.
No. I just need to be able to plug in my CPAP.
Yeah, a number of people go for that. Yeah, I'm going to hopefully be joining you folks via video for part of it. But again, a couple of us on the call, we worked at this Boy Scout camp up in the Catskills, and every year we have a annual reunion. Not able to make it this one, but it's again a great Boy Scout camp, and the only one to ever come back from the dead. And it was just announced yesterday that the lawsuit is finally over for the Boy Scouts and the sexual harassment lawsuits, and many councils had to sell their camps off to pay their share of it, and we're lucky that we did not. So Carlos and I are both members of the Alumni Association, and I was just working on the presentation. You might find this interesting, Carlos. Would you take a quick guess on how much we've raised over the years for camp?
20,000.
Oh, we've passed the 500,000 mark and still going. So
Wow.
yeah. So I
Excellent.
had the list of all the things. We started our first year. Oh, we bought a kayak. When we had next to no money. And this year we're putting $75,000 into upgrading. We're introducing the miracle of flush toilets into the camp, stuff like that. But it's throw a rock in the pond for me when you're up there.
I will.
Yeah, Bill Troop is going to be there, so give him a hi for me.
Will do. Yep.
Great. Well, I hope folks had fun, and there were probably some things that yeah. Randy, you had your hand up. Sorry.
I actually had a couple things. You've probably seen Roger LaRoche's Expo 67 stuff.
Yeah.
All the things he's published about it. Because you were mentioning about how there were no empty spaces, but oddly enough, if you look at his planning document, which is very exhaustive, unfortunately, mostly in French, but
Yeah.
Things shifted around a lot for one. I mean, you look at 1963 and there's countries, of course, that never made it. And, you know, in one map, the US is in what became the amusement zone. But there actually are a couple of blank spots. The most prominent one is between Austria and one of the theme pavilions. But the Expo Corporation had plans for stuff like that. So they threw in some benches and some canvas awnings and a couple sculpture, and it became a plaza. Whereas in New York didn't. They just threw sod on, and you know, it was just an empty lot basically, except for like the Garden of Meditation. But and also, you know, Marineland is considered a mid-century modern architectural icon. It's featured a lot on those websites. Unfortunately, the film you had did not show a lot of the, you know, the architecture, but it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I just bought 4 more reels of Marineland. I'm hoping it shows more of the architecture.
Yeah. We had a Santa's Village up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It was the same owners. It was actually in Felton, kind of halfway between San Jose and Santa Cruz. Went a couple of times. They didn't have the little monorail. That was neat. You know, the one down here. Was it Lake Arrowhead? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, couldn't remember. Yeah, and then, you know, Universal, I've only been there twice, once in '66 on one of our visits down to visit relatives. And we saw a whole lot of stuff. I mean, as far as like stars, they were filming Thoroughly Modern Millie. So we saw, you know, Julie Andrews, Mary Tyler Moore, John Gavin, were the 3 that we saw, with some street scene where they were driving some old roadster. And then they were also filming McHale's Navy, as you said, and we saw a bunch of the actors came up to the tram. But kind of the big thrill was seeing Bob Hope drove by on a golf cart, stopped and talked. Very nice man.
Yeah, go back to what you're saying. Roger LaRoche is obviously the man that knows everything about Expo 67. I mean, he's got, he worked there, he walked it, he lived it, and we had the pleasure when we were back in Montreal for the anniversary of spending the day out on the site with Roger, and we were up at the biosphere and stuff with him, and he's just, if you ever get a chance to go up to Montreal and you can link up with Roger, he is just a real joy to spend time with. And
He's the one that translated your book into French, right?
yeah, he did the majority of the
Yeah.
translation for me. So, super guy.
Yeah.
And he does have some really nice documents as far as, oh, they were going to build, you know, their version of the Eiffel Tower, a monument for the ages. Oh, well, we didn't have the money for that. So, you know, it was going to be, I think, at the tip of the island.
Right, where the La Ronde is, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, he goes back and forth. But, yeah, they, you know, I mean, when I said there were no empty spots, it's, you know, they did have plazas and that, like you said. And I thought it was good because you had some benches you could sit at, places you could sit and eat and things like that. But you didn't have this giant, you know, pavilion, giant green area of sod pavilion sort of thing. If they had an empty area, they you know, made it into plazas, and they had imaginative names: Plaza A, Plaza B, you know, stuff like that.
Well, there was Asbestos Plaza. That's my favorite.
Yes,
Imagine
Asbestos
having that
Plaza.
Yeah.
In his last movie, there was a picture, and I meant to mention it, Engineering Plaza, or Engineers Plaza, which, being an engineer, I appreciate that they had that. Oh, in '67, I didn't know quite what I wanted to be. You know, engineering was still 2 years away. I think in '67, I still wanted to be an astronaut or something. But you mentioned, let me just share the screen here real quick. Okay. This is 1988 Lake Arrowhead. There's our daughter, who is, you know, grown up a little bit since then, but this was the sort of Santa's Village you had back then. So she's going around the pony ride there. Little village to walk through. There's 2 familiar faces in the background for me. Margaret doesn't look so happy about something.
Who's the young girl, the young lady there? Is
Well,
that you, Carol?
That's my question.
Yeah, that's what I used to look like.
I still do to me. And wanting to be an engineer, I finally got to drive the train. So what's interesting is I get a kick out of this 99 number on the train. That's the same number of the train that ran around the kids amusement area at Expo 67. So there must be something about old engine 99 someplace. So the film of Griffith Park and the model of other observatories reminded me to recommend a book, The Perfect Machine by Ronald Florence, the story behind the Mount Palomar telescope. Oh, thanks, Wayne. Appreciate it. Well,
Yeah, the story of the characters behind promoting it and getting the funds and getting it put together is a great one. And also the fact that when it was first commissioned, quote unquote, it wasn't actually working. They were getting multiple images of everything in the sky. And the problem was the weight mechanisms that were supposed to balance the stresses on that huge mirror.
So it didn't work quite right. Maybe an ancestor of Ken Carpenter came to the rescue.
Could be.
Yeah, Ken, next time somebody gives you a hard time about Hubble, just remember, hey, we're just following the traditions of the Palomar.
Hey, I grew up worshiping the Palomar telescope from afar and reading all about it. So close to the heart, almost as close as Lake George. I did make a discovery the other day that might tie into what Randy was talking about architecture wise. Bear with me for a second. This is Disney related, although it doesn't sound like it when I start. I was, after Olivia Newton-John passed away, I went back and watched Xanadu that she started in with Gene Kelly. And if you remember, there is after they're inspired to create a new performance venue, they found this old decrepit auditorium that they remodel and create their new art. And I looked at it and thought, that looks familiar. Why in the world does this look familiar? Some old rundown building in LA, presumably. So I looked it up and it turns out to be the Pan Pacific Auditorium, which was the inspiration for the facade to Hollywood Studios and California Adventure. And so I had no idea that those facades were based on a real place, but it's very distinctive when you see it. I saw some old pictures of it. Trey Calloway mentioned that it was an example of, I think he called it mid-century architecture or mid-century mod, like Randy was talking about. I'm not 100% sure.
Actually more, it could be streamlined, modern, I think.
Yeah, I
more.
think that's it.
It's definitely streamlined. It's got all these curves and arches and things
And
in it.
I'm not sure, but I think part of that movie, what was it, Xanadu? I think the facade of the Pan Pacific Auditorium, I believe, was still there when they filmed that.
It was.
Most of the building itself, I think, had burned down, but the facade had been saved. I think there were, thoughts of rebuilding something behind it and all that. Just, never materialized, sadly. But yeah, and of course, that movie. So you watched the movie all the way through, huh?
I did. I made it. Yes.
I actually liked it. It's one of those.
It's a crazy movie, but the songs are great.
Cult classics, but Olivia Newton-John was so popular then, and just as cute as a bug. I mean, what could you say about her? Yeah.
The movie,
Gene Kelly was still doing old gay at that age.
Exactly. Yeah.
I tell you, it's one of those movies you love to hate or something. I mean,
Right.
it's bizarre. I mean, when I first saw it, I instantly said, "That's the Panfitages," and they had been closed by the time I moved out here. It hadn't been used for a number of years, but as soon as I saw it, I recognized it. And then, of course, in Florida. But you watch that movie, and I mean, again, she's just wonderful, and I'm a huge Gene Kelly fan, so seeing him out there in the roller skates and everything, I got a real kick out of it. But man, that is just one strange film.
The soundtrack is the best thing about the whole mess.
For
With
sure.
Yellow and Olivia Newton-John. Yeah.
It was yesterday I had, as I was driving into the station, my iPod just on shuffle mode, and it came up with Here Comes the Sun but the movie version from Sergeant Pepper, a singer named Sandy Farina, which I just love the version she did of, Here Comes the Sun. So that's another movie where, it's got some really great songs, but the movie itself is just, I mean, like Steve Martin in that is really great. The movie, you can only watch it in segments. If you watch it all the way through, I think blood starts coming out your ears. It's bizarre.
Yeah, another one of those movies is Valley of the Dolls. I was fortunate enough years ago to see it at the Castro Theater up in San Francisco, and Patty Duke was there, and she was on stage talking about the production, and the whole thing was a mess. Judy Garland was supposed to be in it and got fired early on, but the showing was one of those things where people dressed as characters, a lot of gay men in drag and that kind of stuff, and it was a real hoot, let me tell you. But the movie is, I watch it every time it's on, but it is one of the biggest train wrecks to come out of Hollywood.
It's crazy. Another one that if I don't go and buy it, but if it pops up on the screen, oh God, I'm gonna watch this all the way through the night. Big Trouble in Little China. Just what are they thinking? But I like Kurt Russell, so I end up sitting there watching the damn movie. And then they announced, we've got the 4K restored. No, we'll not buy it, but if on, I'll just turn it on. I mean, I think we all probably have some movies that fall into that category. For some people, it's Star Trek: The Motion Picture, right?
They remastered that one too.
What's that?
They remastered that if you want to buy it.
I know, and there's people. I guess there's a new version coming out. Has it come out yet? The newest version?
I think, but you never know when they're really done.
Because they showed it on Paramount Plus or something, and then they're supposedly putting out yet another version. But there's some people that's the greatest Star Trek thing ever filmed in the planet Earth, and I go, boring.
When you say another version, you mean a continuation of that franchise? Is that what you mean, or?
No, they supposedly restored it and redid.
Oh, I got you.
Effects.
That's like, yeah. That's like, I gotta tell you how many versions of the soundtrack of The Sound of Music I have. Because this one adds this song. It wasn't on the original LP. And this one has, outtakes, and this one does that. But yet there's not one single version that has the entire soundtrack on one disc or whatever.
Well, we got a kick. One of the shows we sit there and watch just because it's on all the time, Big Bang Theory. And there's one episode that they're gonna go see, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think it's Raiders. And Penny says, haven't you seen it a million times? Well, this is the restored version. It's got 7 extra seconds. It changes the entire film. They're all out, lined up, people down the street to go see 7 seconds of restored footage.
A few months back, I went and saw, have you ever been to the Aero Theater, Bill, in Santa Monica?
No, I don't think so. Which
AERO. They do a lot of retro, films that have been restored and just retro showings of different things. And I saw a restored version of the original Airport, the one with Dean Martin, and the huge cast. It was fun. They had restored not only the film but the soundtrack, the stereophonic soundtrack had been restored. It was really, really well done because they actually before showed, some clips of an unrestored, 30 seconds, and then the same clip restored, and it's amazing how different these films look.
Well, hopefully they restore it better than Disney restores some of theirs, because they some of the animated films they've done, they've just really way over saturated them in color or dialed down the grain in the film and stuff. I still keep some of my older versions, and of course that. And some of the stuff, Pecos Bill can't have a cigarette in his hand, let's airbrush it out. So it's some of the restoration is not so good on some of them. Well, I hope folks enjoy this. Next week, I don't think I'm going to be doing a chat because I'm going to be trying to join Carlos and the others online, live vicariously up in Onteora. But I think we'll have probably more movies in 2 weeks, or I just got to whole bunch of color slides from the 39 World's Fair that I'm working through, and I'll see how far I can get on them. But it's really it's great when you've seen a building that you know very, very well from having restored 200 black and white images, and all of a sudden there it is in front of you in color, and real color. I've got this giant stack of red border Kodachrome slides I'm working through, and this particular one here is the DuPont Pavilion all lit up at night. So great fun. So I'll get us back to 39 at some point as I go through them. But I hope folks have a good week or 2 weeks, and I thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed some of the random hodgepodge of jumping here and there through time.
Thanks, Bill. It was fun.
Great, and feel better, Ken. Hope you get home soon.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Sure. Take care, Glenn. Bye.
Bye-bye.